Thank you for all of those of you who could make it today to spend your evening with us. And I just want to briefly just go through some of these comments, and thank you so much for responding. It looks like we have some great participation in different parts of the country here. Kelly from Massachusetts was saying why you think giving your students hands-on civic experience matters right now in particular, because it's important, right? Teaching U.S. history, it's important for me to have students see connections to present day, so what's happened in the past to what's happening now, and especially now, right? This is a great time to be teaching history for sure. Wasim said, yes, 2 words. It's important because of current events. Absolutely. John Devine, I believe actual engagement in the community on problems or opportunities to give students a way during these times of finding not only their voice, but various ways afforded by the Constitution to address them. Right. You need to have a way and then be able to act on that. So thank you for sharing. Katie from Washington said, my students want to be engaged and I'm not always sure how to help them. These are some really great comments. So you're in the right place here today with us. So we just want to thank you again for being here, because we're going to be talking about some simple and effective ways to give your students a civic voice. And before I begin, I just want to do a quick shout out to some of our teachers, some of our Constitutional Rights Foundation teachers that are here with us. We have Jennifer Jolly from Florida, Rebecca from North Carolina, Anne Marie from Massachusetts, who has some great students who actually just joined our youth board. So she's doing some great work there in Massachusetts. We have Quinn who's one of our original CAP teachers from Florida. Val and Chris, I see you on there, and they're actually some folks that we've partnered with who pioneered our Civic Action Project for middle school, working with the Boys and Girls Club in Florida. So thank you guys for being here. Lewis from Huntington Park, Carlos, we see you, Letitia and Dina from Roosevelt High School, Eduardo and June from Montebello, Robert from Council Bluffs Community School District, Jeffrey from LA Promise Schools, and Leslie from Narbonne. So those are just a few. I hope, I know there's more of you, but just a few people that we just wanted to do a quick shout out for. Just to give you a taste of what CAP has to offer. And of course, again, it's just going to be a taste, but we're always here. We're just a phone call, an email, or a Zoom away to help support you in these free resources for your CAP classroom. So if we could just have the staff just quickly turn their cameras so we can say a quick hello. We have Gregorio, who's our Senior Program Director, Sarah, another Senior Program Director at Constitutional Rights Foundation. We have David, who's a Senior Manager. He'll also be speaking with you. And I don't know, I haven't looked yet, but Sari and Casey may or may not be here. They are our former Parkland students who founded Empower the People, who lead our CAP Youth Board and will be working with our CAP Live projects.
Thank you very much, Laura. So, welcome once again to everybody to the Civic Action Project. Simple and effective ways to engage your students with the CAP process. We have a couple of 3 different ways we're going to introduce to you today, including the traditional way, which is a little updated, but a little about CRF for those of you that have never heard of us. We've been around for over 50 years, based in Los Angeles. We're a national, nonpartisan nonprofit. Emphasis on nonpartisan, which I've been telling people seems to be the radical posture these days. We pride ourselves on creating balanced materials, and we really trust the students to learn the facts and form their own informed opinion, and based on that, taking effective civic action. As you can see there, we have a couple of them programs and resources that you may have heard of. Some of you may have heard of our Bill of Rights in Action newsletter, a free quarterly newsletter. And Sarah, you could tell us a little of what's coming up in the next edition of BRIA, Bill of Rights in Action?
One of the articles is going to be looking at questions of Indian sovereignty and native sovereignty and treaties in the United States. There's also going to be an article about something that was in the news today, the START Treaty. And like always, so a good mix of world history, US history, and government in BRIA, every issue.
Thank you very much, Sarah. And we also have some great resources in our Civics on Call section on the CRF website. Classroom-ready lessons on issues of the day, including a lot of new resources on the COVID crisis, the public health crisis that we're all experiencing. Gun and school safety was another issue that's explored in our Civics on Call resources, and also understanding fake news. So there's a lot of great topics that are being explored there. Once again, ready to use lessons that you can use to inform your students on, and maybe they may even use that as a platform to maybe even take some civic action. You never know. Of course, we'll be sharing links to all of those resources at the end of today's website. But let's get to the reason you're here today, which is to learn a little more about the Civic Action Project, which we like to call a web-based practicum for teaching U.S. government. It's free. All you need to do is register, and you get access to all of the resources on the CAP website. We always try to make sure that all of our resources and activities are aligned with the standards. We know that all of you as teachers need to justify that classroom instruction. And it's really not that hard a thing to do, because there's a direct link, we think, between public education, of course, and civic engagement. And what's really important about CAP is because the civic actions that the students practice and experience as they're developing their CAP projects, those are really the types of things and experiences that are going to prepare them for success beyond high school, and particularly for college, career, and civic life. And in a nutshell, the way we like to describe the CAP process is that students focus on a problem, issue, or need that's really important to them. They find that policy connection, because that's where the sustainable change is going to occur. And then they take civic actions to try to learn how they can become players in that process, how they can influence the creation or a modification or even elimination of a policy that they think is really important to address a problem or issue that they care about. And that process is what ends up being what we like to call Civic Action Project, also known as CAP. I'm going to pass it on to Laura, and she's going to introduce you to one of the first distance learning resources that we piloted last semester and ready to roll out full-fledged this semester. Laura?
Absolutely. Thanks, Gregorio. So yeah, so we're talking about 3 different ways to do CAP. One of them is CAP Live, where we, or the CAP Youth Board, teaches CAP for you. Actually, before I even begin this, I believe we have Sari.
I'm from Empower the People. I'm one of the founders of Empower the People. So we are really looking forward to working on the CAP project and working with your students throughout CAP.
And as I mentioned, Sari and Casey are kind of the leaders of our CAP Youth Board, but we have a CAP Youth Board who's, no matter which way you might be interested in doing CAP, they're available to help you and your students. So quickly, CAP Live, these are free live webinars for students that teachers can use either online or in their person classroom. So they're youth to youth. They're facilitated by Casey and Sari, and as I mentioned, the other CAP Youth Board. Again, every member of our CAP Youth Board have experience taking actions on issues they care about, which is super important. The webinars will be 40 minutes, and they'll take place twice a month on Friday mornings. 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 11:30 Eastern. And all the webinars will feature interactive activities and guest speakers, really to get students engaged in the topic of how to take civic action. And just to share a couple, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to share a couple titles. So our first session, which will take place on February 19th, will be a session where students will identify something they care about and then learn the power of telling their story. And on March 5th, they'll learn about how to take concrete action on issues that they care about. On April 9th, they'll learn what public policy is and how they can use it to solve problems, because that's probably one of the biggest stumbling blocks our young people have, is really understanding what that word policy is and how that is used to solve problems. And then on April 23rd, students will explore the different levels of government and how they can access and interact with government to solve their problems. So that's kind of CAP Live, a couple of the headlines, I guess, and I'll be able to show you at the end where you'll find a full agenda of every session and what dates we'll be doing those. It's just a sample. They will be recorded, and it will end with a national CAP Expo where students will be able to share with other students across the nation about issues that they care about. I'll pass it on to Sarah for CAP Online. Oops, I'm sorry, Sarah, just real quick.
Go ahead.
I forgot about this. This is some takeaways. We did CAP Live. We were fortunate to do CAP Live last fall with some students from different parts of the country. And this was some of the takeaways they had. And I really like what they said about overall what they understood is that young people do, can, and should make change, and that they do have this power to do that. And now they have these concrete steps that they can take to make change possible. So, all right, now on to Sarah.
I'm just going to give you a very quick nutshell description of CAP Online, which is our second remote learning option for doing CAP with your students. Basically, this is the asynchronous all online option, or all online from our end anyway. The CAP Online, we've recorded, sort of cataloged and put together a checklist of activities using the webinars that we had last semester in CAP Live. So we've got, again, a great mix of sessions with guest speakers, members of our CAP Youth Board, and some simple checklists for your students for each session. And then we also have the CAP action planners that are available for you and your students to work, outside of the webinar time or the web time on planning more specific actions, identifying issues that matter to them, and figuring out steps that they want to take. So, but it's very streamlined and mapped out really, really clearly to take the guesswork out of it for you and for your students. And for all of these options, we are available anytime by email. Give us a call. As you're working through whichever option you decide works for you, we'll be here to clarify anything that needs to be and to give you a hand getting through it.
Thank you, Sarah. And we also have, of course, and maybe for some of you, maybe looking forward to getting back face-to-face in the classroom in the fall, we also have the traditional CAP in the classroom option, which is the core curriculum of CAP lessons that were developed and been updated since then. And they really engage students. And once again, the CAP process provides them with the context of citizenship, why it's important, immediately engages them with the importance of policy and understanding policy and how really it saturates their daily lives, and then takes them to the next step, identifying some causes and effects, and really start to dig in on investigating the problem, issue, or need that they think is really important, need to be addressed. So you have those 5 core CAP lessons. We have some project planners that are essentially a series of prompts that lead them step by step through the CAP process, and also allows them to document every step of the process. Because as I always tell students, unless they write it down, it's almost as if it didn't happen. So it's really important that they document those steps, which then inform their next steps. And also, you'll also find on the CAP website the Civic Action Toolkit, which is essentially an inventory of discrete civic actions that students can apply to developing their own CAP project. Now, we're anticipating that you might need maybe a little extra support, or maybe some little inside information on the most effective way to deliver CAP. So we've already arranged for a couple of new webinars, tips and tricks with a guest CAP teacher on February 18th. And the guest CAP teacher, Laura, is Justel.
Yes, Giselle Grandstart from Colorado. She's been doing CAP both in person before COVID, and then she switched to completely remote. And now I think she's in a hybrid model. So she has lots of wisdom to share.
Lots of wisdom. And speaking of wisdom, for our CAP Middle School, we'll have Val McBee and Christopher Spinelli from Florida, Lou Fry Institute, Florida Joint Center for Citizenship. They actually helped us develop the middle school version of CAP, and they got a lot of experience on how to successfully implement CAP with middle school students. All of these options, once again, they're designed to really cultivate what we consider to be that informed, engaged, and effective citizen. Developing and experiencing the types of skills that are going to make them players, and especially in terms of influencing sustainable change in the future. I think at this point, I'll pass it up to David.
So I'm just going to tell you really quickly about 2 resources that we have for student participation and engagement. The first one is the CAP Expo, which you see on the screen now, and the other one will be the CAP Multimedia Contest. But first of all, the CAP Expo serves like a culminating event for your students, so they can share the issues that they chose. And again, it's issues that matter to them. They share the policy connections they made, and they also share with us the civic actions they took to make a difference on their issue, on their problems in their community. It will be virtual. We already do have a date for that. It will be on Friday, May 21st at 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. And it's really just a great event where we get to learn from students across the nation, just, all the amazing things that they've done, the civic engagement that they've taken in their communities, and the change they've made. It will all be virtual, and it's all moderated by us, and it's just really a great event. We'd really love to see your students participate at the Expo, whether it be presenting their issue, what they worked on, or being a part of a panel where they also get to ask questions. And it's just a great day of learning. And that kind of covers what the virtual CAP Expo looks. And we will have examples of that for your students to see what they're getting into. So it's a really great event again. And again, it is Friday, May 21st, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time. One of the other resources that we have for students is our CAP Multimedia Contest. And what we want is for your students to share their story, what they did to make a difference in their community. So they tell their story through either PowerPoint, video, or social media, like an Instagram story or anything of that nature. Simple guidelines. Just need to explain what their problem or issue is that they were worked on, why the problem or issue was important, and what were some of the civic actions they took to make a change in their community. And all these entries are judged by our CAP Youth Board. This semester we'll have them due usually around May, so we'll post that deadline on this website, and there is monetary rewards for the students. So that's our CAP contest, and it also provides us with a lot of examples of what students are doing to make a difference, and your students will have access to those to help them as they're creating their product.
This is the CAP website, so everything again is free. It's available on the CAP website. All you have to do is register. You can either again register by going here or registering for what specific part of CAP that you're interested in, and then you can have access. You'll have access to the curriculum. You'll have access to the toolkit, and I'll show you where you can find some of these things. So under the student tab, you'll see the CAP planners that the students can use to be able to identify their issue and start taking action on it. You'll see the Connect tab where they're able to get real life advice from the CAP Youth Board about their issues. You'll see the toolkit where they'll be able to access kind of one-page documents about specific civic actions that they can take. So for example, if they wanted to create awareness, here's a one-page document on how they can create an opinion poll or a survey, or here's a one-page document on how to create an effective flyer. There's something for creating petitions. There's a page on how to send an email to a legislator. There's how to do interviewing. So anything that you can think of, there's probably a one-page concrete tool that a student can use to take action on a particular issue that they care about. Also, another great place to start with CAP is with our student action page. So our student action page has real life examples of there's probably about, if you go to the YouTube page, probably over 100 different examples of real student civic action projects. And here's just a couple that we've pulled out. You can see these different topics. We have them organized also by topic. And then we actually have some middle school examples. So,
and this is really a great way to introduce CAP to your students by them seeing some completed student created projects. And there's a variety of them. A lot of them are videos, but there are also websites and PowerPoints and stuff like that. It really gives them an idea of what they're actually capable of in terms of not only documenting their experience, but really creating a product that can influence other people's opinions on some of the issues they think are important. There's a question there about difference between CAP in the classroom and CAP online. CAP in the classroom was, as it says, designed for a face-to-face environment, and CAP online. Laura, can you talk a little about CAP online, or Sarah, the main difference between that and CAP in the classroom? I'm seeing in the chat room, because the CAP online has different approach and a different emphasis in terms of the lessons, in terms of the activities, and it's really an archived version of sort of the stuff that we were doing yes, it is. CAP online is archived version of the stuff that we were piloting last semester. So you have archived webinars of some of the presentations, some of the guest speakers, and then some of the activities that actually took place.
I think the question got partially answered in the chat too. And the main difference is just kind of in how much of a lift you're doing as the teacher. The thing with CAP online is that the webinars are set up as, you know, someone, usually the CAP Youth Board, sort of teaching a lesson. So it's kind of plug and play for your kids, and then any follow-up or additional work that you want to do either online or in the classroom, depending on what your situation is, you know, you can help the kids kind of navigate through it. Whereas the CAP in the classroom is obviously much more, you know, you're delivered to the extent that there's teaching content happening, that's coming from you, the teacher. So that's one of the big differences. And I'm trying to keep up with, there are a bunch of other good questions in the chat, like great practical questions. So I'm going to pause myself for a second, Laura, if you want to.
We are recording the different sessions. You can also pop into one of the sessions if you feel like, gee, that session sounds really interesting, and my students will really benefit from them. You can pop into those as well. We'll also have them recorded and put under the CAP Live section of the website. And yes, as Carrie mentioned, our youth board is available. We had some of our youth board visit other classrooms to give specific talks on something that the teacher wanted. I think, for example, we had one youth board where the young people were wondering, what do I do? What's one of the first civic actions I should take? And then they also wanted to know some more in-depth things about how do you start a nonprofit and that sort of thing. We actually had some youth boards who were able to help with some of those things like organizing, starting nonprofits, etc. So Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you to say a few words.
I just wanted to give a little more background about Empower the People and who Casey and I are and who will be leading the students. I went to Stoneman Douglas when the shooting happened. I was a sophomore, and now I'm a freshman at Yale, and I started Empower the People, which is a civic education nonprofit. So we definitely use the skills that we have learned through our gun violence prevention advocacy, and then also the resources that we used and we learned when starting a nonprofit. So we definitely love doing and leading CAP because we can show the students that, you know, we are normal teenagers and that we were able to create change on a local level and then also even on a federal level in some cases, and that students can do that if they have, you know, the correct knowledge and resources. So that's what we're definitely trying to accomplish during the CAP Live sessions. And last semester, it went great, and we did it last year as well. So we're really excited for this upcoming semester. And we really believe that if we're able to have the peer-to-peer education and just show that, you know, it's definitely possible to create action and change, then students will definitely benefit greatly from CAP Live. So hopefully that pitch is good for all the teachers to sign up.
So I think that's it for us. We actually are finished somewhat early. So we're happy to maybe answer any questions you have in the chat. We can
I
read
see
some.
one question I
Great.
was going to jump in to answer, Laura, just because it's a great practical question about if students make an account on the website as well. Once you register, you can submit a roster, and we will set up those accounts for your students so that they can have full access to all the capability of the CAP website. They can access many of the tools without it, but to really get the full experience, it's great if they have their own logins. Laura, while you're on the website there, could you show folks the different dashboards, so that there was a question from Mike in New York, I think, about finding the materials that are specific for middle school. And I'll answer while Laura's navigating, but when you register either for middle school, or you'll sort of be given the choice, I think is how it works. And so then you'll see on your dashboard either middle school or high school options. But one thing I should mention is that what we've found and the way we've set up the material for CAP Live and for CAP Online, those are totally appropriate for middle school as well. Last semester during CAP Live, we had some of our all-star students were 7th graders from New Hampshire, who held their own, more than held their own in live sessions with, upperclassmen from California and other places. So we've really tried to streamline things and make them as simple and user-friendly as possible for across the grades and for you all and for your kids.
that concludes. I think this is probably a record for us to actually be done before and not after. So again, happy to stay on to have any questions. We're definitely going to follow up with an email to all of you so that we can answer any questions that you may have, or if you need us to, get on a Zoom call and kind of walk you through the process, we're happy to do that as well. You can always find our emails under contact. If you look here on our webpage, the very far right, it says contact. You'll see all of our lovely pictures as well as email and phone numbers. So again, happy to chat, happy to help you any way we can. We know it's tough out there, whether you're in the classroom or teaching remotely or somewhere in between. We just want to be a resource to you and getting your students out there being able to take action on issues they care about. So thank you.